I can count on, my fingers the amount of times that I've witnessed the Chaos Gods speak when in the setting of 40K. So what's up, guys? It's Connor, and today I actually wanted to talk about, surprise, Chaos. No, but this will be one of the last Chaos videos for a little bit, because I've obviously been doing a little too much of those, and I should branch out a little bit more. But I did want to talk about this because this was sort of on my mind for quite a bit. And it's one of the most fascinating things for me is when these eldritch, very ever-present beings in the setting, the Chaos Gods, sort of take a step back from being lingering elements in the background that sort of push forth plots and motivations for certain characters and are always influencing things, and take a very direct, real deal, approach to the setting they're in. And it's easy to say that because I mentioned this in another video. The word bearers make this argument where there are gods and they do care and they are present in your lives. Sure, but that's like saying the emperor is also present in the Imperial's lives, in the sense that sure he is, but he's more of a plot device or like a force of nature at this rate than a character. And that's obviously the same description you could apply to the Chaos Gods. And that's all well and good because that's very much true. But when they do decide to really, authors move them from this pedestal and kind of drop them in a new location and make them very much present in the story and give them even the slightest form of either characterization or just sort of presence at all, it's really interesting and really fun. And there's some notable examples of this, and number one, my personal favorite, is the excerpt that everybody knows, everybody and their mom, you see it on the YouTube shorts. Fabius Bile has like this face-to-face interaction with Slaanesh, and I'm doing quotations because yes, in the examples I'm going to bring up, the Chaos Gods do speak, but it's so ever very, 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 very rare, if at all, that it's ever been depicted, that they physically manifest somehow themselves, like in an avatar or whatever. They have, or rather they would use avatars or other of their own, they use their demons rather to speak through them, because the demons themselves are obviously just essence and shards of the Chaos Gods themselves. You see a Bloodthirster, that's not Khorne, but that is as close as a fragment of this Chaos God that you're really going to see. Khorne is on the battlefield because he's wherever blood is, but this is the most incarnate physical manifestation of this Chaos God. So we get back to the story of the excerpt I was mentioning. This is in, I think, his second book. It's either Manflayer or Primogenitor. I'm just going to name them all. And Clone Lord. It's in the second book, though, I'm pretty sure. And Fabius Bile is kind of interacting with this figure who's like called the Quasitor or something. And it's Slaanesh. And Slaanesh is basically telling him how he's his most favorite subject, how he just refuses to make new mistakes because he makes the same mistakes each time, just in a different way, and he's so entertaining because he's constantly fulfilling the cycle of chasing these new, his goals are so excessive in the fact that he wants humanity to thrive without relying on the warp, much like the Emperor, but he goes about it in a really bastardized and cruel way, and Slaanesh loves him for it because he's one of the best that's ever, graced the earth or whatever, with Slaanesh's, the call to excess. But there's this back and forth, and Slaanesh is basically saying all these things like, you could do so much better, you do all this, and Fabius Bile says, I'm not weak, I don't believe in gods, I think, therefore I am, you don't think, you're a confluctuation of warp phenomenon. And he describes looking at Slaanesh, or the Quasitor in this rate, and they have a smile that seemingly never begins and never ends and takes up the whole width of the known galaxy. And that is probably the most apt and realistic depiction you can get of something that really shouldn't ever be described because it's beyond being describable. But it's fucking awesome, and it's cool because this is when we see like an eldritch, primordial being that has had influence for hundreds of millions of years rather, take a direct approach and get into the game that they are actively playing. Everybody knows about the great game between the four, and if you don't, these four Chaos Gods absolutely despise each other and will fight, to lay claim over the warp and eventually try to do real space as well, but their whole goal is to win and have them, have control over everything, warp and real space, all this. But this is one of those rare times when we actually see one of the gods actually come down and sort of talk to one of the play pieces of the game, and it's just very, very interesting stuff. There was going to be another mention of the Chaos God, it would be Khorne, and I know he sort of wipes out a whole fleet or something in the newest, Lion book, and there's the murder curse. I'm not going to cover that because I'm going to be real with you guys. I haven't read it, and I would be talking out of my ass if I just told you about it. So we're not going to talk about that. But we will talk about another one, and I'm sure most people are also really familiar with this, is Talos. Talos. Yes, Talos, the Night Lord. If you've read the Night Lord's Omnibus, Soul Hunter, Soul Reaver. There's another one. Can't remember that one name. If you haven't read that, I'd actually really, really recommend it. It's really, really awesome. Really great characters, personalities, a lot of bolter violence. It's great. It is really good. I do have to say, I enjoyed it quite a bit. Talos and Uzas is my favorite character of all time. I'm sorry, he got done dirty, and I'm not going to spoil how or why. But shout out my boy. He did not deserve to be the fate he got. Anyway, that aside, my love for any coordinate character ever aside, there's a scene in, I think, the second or first book where Talos is with Abaddon, and Abaddon's trying to recruit him because they need Gene Seed and they need a bunch of other resources because the Warband's currently suffering quite a bit, and the Exalted's trying to make a deal with Abaddon. Sorry, I don't know why I spaced out there. And there's this whole conversation going on. We're reviewing Abaddon's legacy and really just how he's sort of finagling about in the setting as it was when this book was written. And then Talos is kind of knocked out or whatever, and he's convening with the gods, but we later find out that basically the sorcerer who sort of initiated this ritual contacted representatives, but they really were the gods just speaking through their obviously respective demons. And this is also really cool because we see temptation throughout most of the Chaos novels and even Loyalist novels and all those aspects. You would see Chaos corruption in various ways, whether forced or it happens naturally, even though I guess you could argue most Chaos corruption is indeed forced. But really, you see firsthand the bargaining tactics of Chaos, and barring, the first 3 books of the Horus Heresy, where you do see Horus sort of get finagled into accepting Chaos's, grasp and all this nonsense. You see Talos go through each individual god, and it starts with, I don't remember who it starts with, but I'm gonna give you the best how much of I can remember it, and it won't obviously be verbatim. But Talos is there, and the first god is Khorne, and Talos sees a broken down version of himself. Half of his face has been torn apart and instead replaced with bionics, and he's heaving and he's vicious, and Khorne tells him he could have great power and influence over the known, real space galaxy. And you would be a fool to deny yourself the marital, right of conquest that you obviously has been bred into you as an Astartes and as a son of Kurz. Might makes right. That's your whole ideal, that you need to scare these people so they don't, go against the Emperor, or that's in this case, since they're traitors, it's their own. Every Night Lord has their own weird version of Kurz's justice. So Khorne uses that to his, to get him to fall, to get Talos to fall to Khorne. That's all well and good. Talos says, no, it's above my legion to fall to Chaos, and my, the blood will always be spilt, but your purpose for spilling blood is pedantic and quite frankly beneath me. All well and good. We go to the next one. It's Slaanesh. Slaanesh depicts Talos to himself with jewels and incense, and he's very, he's decked out with stuff. He's very, very, decked out, and he's obviously very excess, and he's still inflicting pain, but not under the guise of justice, under the guise of Slaanesh, and so these fools can see what they've been missing under Chaos. He doesn't fall for it, doesn't like it, moves on. Tzeentch shows himself, but more mystical and whatnot, and he kind of makes the argument, oh, your captain is already under my command, but he's just a pawn. You can be one of my greatest assets and tools, which is obviously like a used carsman saying, yo, bro, I just got this new like 2002 Honda Civic and it barely works, but it's okay because really that's a lot better than anyone else is going to give you, and you can be my best customer by buying this. You know what I'm saying? Like Zinch, the car salesman over here, is trying to finagle you into signing with 44.9%, you know, down payment, all this nonsense. Talos doesn't fall for it either. He's like, bro, I go on Carfax. I don't care. No, he actually, again, says, and I've seen what your influence has done to Vandred. He's a shell of what he used to be, with echoes emerging every now and then, but the demon that you've emplaced within him has obviously diminished his character, and he's not the same Marine nor leader that anyone remembers. And then it comes to Nurgle, and this was really funny too. Nurgle basically says, I don't know why I'm here. There's nothing I can offer you. And leaves. That's it. That was that whole interaction with Nurgle. You could obviously go to Godblight, and you could infer upon the final scenes where Guilliman's possessed by the Emperor and does like an actual like physical fire damage attack to the garden, and it shakes up the warp, because this is the first time we've really seen a Chaos God get injured. But belief is power, and belief in the Emperor is absolutely at its peak right now in this current setting. So this did damage Nurgle, and it was interesting to see that as well, even though this isn't online with them communicating with the world, which is the whole part of the video. But I just thought that was an interesting aside, because that is also one of the things that really speaks to me, because this was almost the same thing. It's just a parallel, because the Emperor now is the one being discussed, even though he's not a Chaos God. You could argue he's definitely a warp entity, but Dark King never happened, so he's not a Chaos God. But that scene as well was interesting, because we have the Emperor, or at least we think the Emperor, and then who knows the mangled consciousness that are contained in this vessel that is the Emperor, speak through Guilliman, saying your time has come, yada yada yada. And then people think that like the last part means that, oh, Mortarion, you can be saved. I don't think that's what he means. Saved, and not in like redemption, because if you redeem any of the traitor Primarchs, I don't think that really just destroys their character. But it also just sort of like, when he says save you, like he means kill Mortarion, not save in redemption. Sorry, little aside there. I get passionate about this stuff because this stuff really interests me. Yeah, so we get Nurgle, and then Talos, and then leaves, and then obviously Talos wakes up, and Abaddon talks to the sorcerer who was in charge of doing this. I think it was a Night Lord sorcerer who was in the warband previously with Talos, but then left, and then whole bunch of stuff. We find there's spoilers that I don't really want to give you, so I'm also going to ignore that and not tell you, but it's interesting. And I'm sure if you guys have any other excerpts or examples of when the Chaos Gods directly speak to characters in the setting, let me know. Drop them in the comments. But yes, this is definitely one of my most favorite things to really think about in the setting, which is, I have a lot of things I like to think about in the setting, but this is one of my favorite because it's so rare that we see forces of nature, and I'm including the Emperor in this, kind of get brought down to a realistic level that we can comprehend as readers. And that's a hard thing to do as an author. I'm not an author, but I do write. You know, it's for school, obviously, but I'm saying I have written stories, and they were not very good. But when you're an author at any capacity, you know, at anything, really, and you're trying to write from the perspective of a being that you obviously mentally can't perceive because we've never experienced the unexperienced before. And I know that's a dumb thing to say, but it's true. Like, I can't conceptualize how I would write an eldritch being that has been here since before humanity and before everybody, and the war in heaven and all that. I don't know how I'd accurately put that down to pen to paper. So it's a hard thing to do, and I like when authors do it. Or with the Emperor, when we see secondhand accounts of him talking, or very rare glimpses of him speaking, and yet we still can't decipher what he means because he's always thinking 3 times ahead, 2 steps back. He's always got something going on. He's got plans upon plans. And even when we're revealed information about him, we're just more confused. And that's the same with the gods, because the gods are always going to go against each other, and they're even, you know, counterproductive towards themselves as well, which is a weird thing to say, but Chaos doesn't want to win because Chaos is self-defeating. Of course, they want to win, but deep down, they just want to keep fighting. So it's fun when they kind of take a break from this and really show you what the gods are in essence. Be they characters or forces of nature, it's always really super fun to see them for who they are. you know, in their whole glory of what they represent. So, yeah, you know, this was just me kind of nerding out about, you know, this particular subsect of stuff that's interesting about 40K. But if you guys enjoyed the video, always super appreciated. Also, very close to 130 subscribers. Super happy I'm even at 100, to be honest, guys. Very, very happy. This is awesome. I didn't think 100 people even remotely gave a shit about me talking about Warhammer, but it's always nice to see, and it's definitely appreciated and noticed 100,000%. I see the people who comment every day and like the stuff. It really does mean a lot to me, regardless of my size. Any like at any size, 100 million, 100,000, 1 is awesome. So thank you, and I will see you guys later.